In Latin, there are basically two types of adjectives. There's the first and second declension type, to which adjectives like bonus, bona, bonum, or noster, nostra, nostrum, so bonus, bona, bonum, good, or noster, nostra, nostrum, our, decline, and so the feminine declines like a first declension, and the masculine and the neuters decline like second declension masculine and second declension neuter. The other type of adjective is, as you can tell from the title of this lecture, third declension adjectives. And there are actually basically three types of third declension adjectives, and they all depend on the number of principal parts that are given in the dictionary. So let's start. First we have adjectives of three terminations, that is, adjectives where the dictionary gives you three principal parts: a masculine, a feminine, and a neuter. So the nominative, so the dictionary entry is going to give you a masculine nominative, a feminine nominative, and a neuter nominative. So for example, we'll get acer, acris, acre, fierce or sharp. Three terminations because there are three different nominatives. There's the masculine, the feminine, and the neuter. Or we get keller, kelleris, kellere, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Right? And these are all the nominative singulars. So they're still going to have to decline, and they'll decline like I-stem third declension nouns. I-stem third declension nouns in which the stem is gotten from the feminine. So the stem for acer, our acer, acris, acre, is going to be ACR, and we're going to add our third declension endings onto this. And keller, kelleris, kellere, the stem is going to be keller. And we'll add our endings onto that. So let's see how this works. And note, they're like I stems. So, acer, acris, acre, masculine, feminine, neuter. We get our stem from acris, and we decline just as we would a third declension I stem. So acer, acris, acre, genitive, acris, 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 all the same. Dative, acri, acri, acri. Accusative, acrem, acrem. Remember, with third declension nouns, the masculine and feminine decline the same. But the neuter, acre, is going to go back to our nominative form. And then remember, with I stems, the ablative ends in I, so acri, acri, acri. In the plural then, acres, acres, right? Feminine and masculine are the same, and neuter acria, I stem. Genitive plural, acrium, 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 all the same. Dative plural, acribus, acribus, acribus. Accusative plural, acres or acris, because this is an I stem. Acres or acris, because it is an I stem. And acria, because it has to be the same as our nominative. And acribus, acribus, acribus. So we call these nouns of three terminations, but in reality, other than in the nominative singular, acer and acris, the masculine and the feminine are the same. So we could say that these two decline identically, except for the nominative singular. And then you have the neuter. Right, so if we had adjectives of three terminations, we can have adjectives of two terminations. There are two terminations because the dictionary will give you two principal parts. It will give you a masculine, feminine, and a neuter version. Right, so the masculine and feminine will be the same. So for example, graues, graue, heavy. Graues will be masculine and feminine, and graue will be neuter. We'll get our stem by dropping off the is, graue, grau. Or we can have fortis, forte, strong. Again, masculine, feminine, and neuter. Get our stem by dropping off the is or the e. We can have dulcus, dulce, sweet. And masculine, feminine, dulcus, and neuter, dulce. drop off the is. Omnes omne, very, very important and common adjective, all or every. Right, I'm going to write that down. All or every. And the stem omne, omne, masculine, feminine, and neuter. And once we have those stems, then it's going to decline like an I stem, just like we did with adjectives of three terminations. So let's take a look at dulcus, dulce, sweet. The first column is going to be our masculine, feminine. The second will be neuter, dulcus, dulce. Dulcus, that should be dulcus, dulcus. The genitive is the same. Dulci, dulci. Dulcem, dulce. Dulci, dulci. So just to make sure. That's dulcus. All right, so if you take a look here, the masculine, feminine, and neuter are identical except in the nominative, where we have a separate masculine, feminine form and a separate neuter form, and in the accusative singular, where we have an accusative in em, as you'd expect, and a neuter in e, because it has to be the same as the nominative. Then we move on to the plural. We get dulces, dulcia. All right, we'd expect this ia, and since there's an I stem, dulcium, dulcium, dulcibus, dulcibus, dulces or dulcis. Remember, it's an I stem. Dulcia, because it has to be the same as the nominative, and dulcibus, dulcibus. So, with adjectives of two terminations, again, the only difference between the masculine, feminine, and the neuter is going to be in the nominative plural and the accusative plural. Otherwise, the masculine, feminine, and neuter are declined exactly the same. So we've had three terminations, two terminations. You can probably guess that one termination adjectives are coming next. So what do these look like? The dictionary entry is going to actually give you two principal parts. Even though it says one termination, we're going to get two principal parts. We're going to get a nominative and a genitive singular. And both of these are going to be important. So for example, ingens, this is the masculine, the feminine, and the neuter nominative singular. Right? This is where we get the term one termination. And then the genitive for all those genders. And the genitive is important because we're going to get our stem from the genitive. So ingens, ingentus, stem, ingent. Right? This means huge. Or we get adjective adolescens, adolescentus. Right? Adolescens is our masculine, feminine, or neuter nominative singular. Adolescentus, the genitive. And we get our stem there. Adolescent means young or youthful. And once you have that stem, it declines like an I stem. So let's decline one of these. Ingens, huge. And here, just for ease of seeing the differences, I'm going to decline masculine, feminine, and neuter separately. But you'll notice the nominatives are the same. Ingens, ingens. Genitive, ingentus, ingentus. Dative, ingenti, ingenti. Accusative, we have a difference because this accusative has a masculine and feminine accusative, whereas the neuter must be the same as the nominative. So ingens in the accusative singular for the neuter. And then ingenti, ingenti. And in the plural, ingentes, ingentia. This makes sense because neuters have to end in a, and it's an I stem, ingentia. Ingenti and neuter nominative plurals have to end in a. Ingentium, ingentium, ingentibus, ingentibus, ingentes or ingentis and ingentia. Again, there's a difference because the accusative neuter plural has to match the nominative neuter plural, so ingentia, and then ingentibus. So, although these three types of adjectives, three termination, two termination, and one termination, third declension adjectives, although we group them separately, really they decline almost identically. The difference is always going to be in the nominatives. We'll add one more onto that, and that's declining the present active participles. You've already discovered how, you already know how to form them. That is, you add an S to the present stem, so we could do agens or faciens. And then the genitive, though, is going to give you the stem. So we're going to treat present active participles, right? If you compare agens with ingens, it might look very similar, and you'd be right. We're going to treat present active participles just like adjectives of one termination, where we have a nominative and a genitive singular. So vocans, vocantis, calling. And this genitive, notice the S turns to a T. We add our IS genitive ending, so our stem is going to be vocant. We add our endings. Moens, moentis, moving. So our stem is moent. And this moens, this is masculine, feminine, or neuter, right? Because it's just like an adjective of one termination. Regens, regentis, ruling. Our stem regent. Capiens, capientis, seizing. Stem capient. Sapiens, sapientis, knowing or wise. Stem sapient. And once you have that stem, we're going to decline it just like an I stem. So let's take a look at, this should say, sapiens, sapientis, and we get sapiens, sapiens, masculine, feminine, and neuter, sapientis, sapientis, sapienti, sapienti, sapientem, sapiens, because our accusative must be the same as the nominative. Plural, sapientes, sapientia. Neuter must end, neuter nominative plural ends in A. Sapientium, sapientium, because it's an I stem. Sapientibus, sapientibus. Sapientes, sapientis. And sapientia, the neuter has to be the same as the nominative. And sapientibus, sapientibus. And all participles, all present active participles, regardless, so all present active participles, regardless of what conjugation they came from, are going to decline this way. The only difference is going to be first declensions are going to have an A here, so vocans, vocantis, and the rest will have the E. So some final notes, things to take away, things to remember. Adjectives are always going to match the noun they're modifying. They are modifying. In gender, number, and case. Not ending. Right? So a third declension adjective could modify a second declension noun or a fifth declension noun. Doesn't matter. You're not going to match an ending then. The declension of an adjective does not change. So if an adjective like graues, graue is modifying some other noun of another declension, it won't change. The good news, there are no fourth or fifth declension adjectives, so adjectives are either first and second declension of some sort, or third declension adjectives.